Today I'm going to look at a couple of tips on how to clean up your story map and make it look a little bit more like a finalized version when we first import a table of points into ArcGIS Online. It gives us a lot of default values and a lot of things that we just need to clean up. If we look at the pop-ups here, it has duplicated titles and maybe just some fields that we don't necessarily need to show our readers. So the first thing we can do is we can actually change our layer title. And the reason why that's important is because it will show up in our legend. So in our final legend, we can see that our title name is duplicated here. We can change that by clicking on the 3 red dots and going to rename. And we can change this to whatever we would like it to be. I am going to rename this. And I am going to show kind of what it looks in the legend now. Now we can see that that legend title looks a little bit more cleaned up. So that's the first thing we can kind of do to fix our map. The next thing we can do is look at our pop-ups. So here's kind of what our example pop-up looks at in the moment. And to fix those, we can go to this pop-up icon. And if we want to fix the title, it will just default to the name of the table that we used to import into the program. And to fix that, we can actually just update the title right here. So and we can even give it a field name. So we're kind of giving it a title of the pop-up right now. And I think just for the sake of this project, we're going to pick the individual or the organization to show up in the pop-up title. And to do that, we can click on this little icon right here. And we're going to click on individual or organization, and we'll see them pop up. And make sure to add a space in there to kind of clean it up a little bit. So after adding that, now we can click on different pop-ups and see now it looks a little bit more cleaned up, a little bit more straightforward on what the pop-ups are about. The next thing we can do is in the same window, if you click on the fields list, these are all the fields that show up in the pop-ups. And one thing I like to do typically is I just remove the lat and the long, the latitude and longitude fields, because we don't really need those anymore. Those are just for having the points show up on the map. So after that's finished, we can look at the rest of our fields. Some of them will be blank, and that is okay. We'll still keep those because a few of the points have data in those fields. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reorder them so they kind of make a little bit more sense to what somebody might be looking for. So I'm going to drag this individual organization to the top, and I might add this display date. Description looks pretty good, event looks pretty good. Location is kind of important, so I might drag that over display date so somebody can see the location. The time date in this particular instance we may not need because this is not a time map. This is just a static map. So if you don't want to add a time slider or a time bar, you can just remove that if you don't need it anymore. So we're actually going to just remove that. If you need to get it back later, there are multiple ways to get the fields back. So once you remove them, it's not a permanent deletion. It's just for kind of visual purposes. So those pop-ups look pretty good. I'm going to close that out and just kind of double check those again. Another thing we can do, and this is a newer function in ArcGIS Online, is if we get a lot of points that are kind of grouped together, we can make that easier for our readers to see by clicking on clustering and enable clustering. And that will actually group some of our points together. And the nice thing is that if you do make a time map, you'll see this counter change over time. You can even reduce the size of the ranges to kind of show how things are grouped. So there's different ways that you can change the points, and you can pick whichever one works the best for you, or what kind of looks the best on your project. There really isn't a right or wrong way to do it. I'm going to add this on low because I like being able to see the numbers and the points spread out. So that is another thing that we can do to kind of clean up our map. And one more thing we can do, the point design on these points are not too bad. We could just leave these as is, or if you want to categorize these by a certain way, we do have in this data a type of an event that is different depending upon where you are looking at the location and what occurred in that area. So we could categorize these points by those events. If we go to Style, and in this field, we're going to add the option for Event. And that will give us a way to categorize our fields by some unique properties. And we can also change our styles. It's pretty good at kind of predicting what you need. And so if you change a few of these fields, it will start to carry it over to all the fields eventually. So you can update that. One thing I like to do is remove the outline transparency because I think it makes the points stand out quite a bit more on the map. The thing about the clustering is it does make your points pretty tiny. So if you want to change that, that is something you can do in these style options. If you want to make those points smaller or bigger, you'll see them change kind of on the map as you go. But still keep in mind that your clustered ones are going to be big, and so you still want them to be kind of all of a uniform size if they're not being clustered. So that is an example of a few things we can do to clean up our map and just make it a little bit more easy to read for our viewers.